This was by far one of the weirdest / most entertaining NFL draft classes I could ever remember. Whether it was the first 0-star recruit to ever get drafted number 1, late round gems that I know will make a difference at the next level, or the biggest familial name in the sport having a historic fall from grace in the draft boards, I can absolutely say I had the most fun I've ever had watching an NFL draft. Then on top of that, my Raiders finally had their first solid draft in my lifetime. I would say it was almost perfect, but there's some choices late day 3 that still just baffle me. But hey, Mark Davis is gonna Mark Davis, right? Overall, it was a pretty good 3 days. I liked a lot of things that happened, and I still have issues with certain things. Let's talk about it after I roll the intro. What's up, fellas? I know I'm a little late with this video, but I think we gotta start with the biggest story of the event, right? Quinn Ewers, all the way from 5-star number 1 player in high school to a 6th-rounder. I'm joking. I do think Quinn is a better player than people give him credit for, and he deserved to get picked earlier. Hell, the Raiders should have picked him instead of picking up touchdown Tommy Mellott. Yes, that is his nickname. Or at least I think it is, because every time I watched or turned on a Montana State game, that's all I heard. Oh, I caught y'all with that one. Yeah, I didn't think I watched the FCS, huh? Or even Cam Miller. That's besides the point. Let's actually talk about the biggest elephant in the room, the Shedeur saga. Before I start this, I will say the prank calls are corny. It's not unique to just him. I know Abdul Carter, Tyler Warren, and a ton of other draftees were targeted, which sucks, man. I view that shit like the scam calls I get on a constant basis. Super fucking annoying. And just because someone found it funny still doesn't make it cool or okay. I find that activity extremely weird and cringy. Let's actually get back to Mr. 144 though. Talent-wise, Shedeur is better than at least 3 quarterbacks drafted ahead of him. That still does not mean he deserved to be drafted in the 1st or even 2nd round. The expectation for that draft range is to start immediately. I know there's exceptions to this rule like Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, but not everyone is the Packers. I could point to more players that were forced to start before they were ready because of where they were picked. Look, personally, I think neither Ward or Dart will be successful starters until maybe year 5. And unfortunately for them, the league never gives players 5 years to develop. To be honest with you, this is actually a really terrible quarterback class as a whole. And that's where the issue lies with Shedeur. I don't think any of these guys will be elite in the NFL. And just because Shedeur is the 3rd best in a below average class, doesn't mean a franchise should have taken a chance on drafting him high. At least high enough that if he didn't work out, all the coaches will get fired, the GM will be fired, they'll clean house if he didn't work out, especially whenever he's already perceived to be a risk. What that risk is, I don't know. Personally, I've never met the guy, nor will I ever. But if you believe any of the stories coming out after the draft, then wow, did Shedeur definitely overestimate his value. Simply, he was not good enough to act like an asshole for the entire draft process. Now, do I believe that Shedeur did all that? No. I just don't think someone would purposely tank their stock the way the NFL media has brought out evidence to suggest he did, because some of these are egregious. There is a little truth in everything though, so take that for what it's worth. Now, as for Shedeur fans, they made him look very soft during this whole process. I consider myself to be a fan of the Sanders family. I like the energy. Specifically, I like Deion, what he brings, and how he's changed Colorado. I think you got to give him credit. And it's fun football. But when you got people coming out and saying that we are lucky that he chose to play football because he comes from a privileged background, he didn't need football. All right, bro. It almost makes people who hated him double down on their hate for him instead of just letting his tape speak for itself. It made it a bigger issue than it was. Oh yeah, about tape. Let's move on to my biggest problem with the draft process. How I think the draft philosophy should be changed. To me, tape matters more than combine stats. It just does. It should have mattered more to a degree. It feels like this draft really shown that scouts no longer care about what you did in college. To the point, I almost ask, why are we even playing these games? I'm being sarcastic, but if they're just going to end up picking a guy that started for 1 year but has really long arms, or a guy that just so happens to be 1 inch taller than this other right tackle that's been balling for years just because they like his measurables a little more? What are we doing? I'm not saying every one of the guys that are raw athletes won't work out, but the hit rate in the NFL is very low when it comes to trying to teach someone how to play football at that level. I'm also not telling scouts that they have to go out there and get a 5'9" middle linebacker that was a tackling machine at some FCS college. I would love to see it, but that's just not going to happen. These scouts just, in my eyes, need to stop being so lazy and relying on athletic testing to make all their decisions when it comes to drafting players, and actually put on some goddamn tape. Find football players that have some of the traits you're looking for, but have the production to back up those numbers, because they do exist. Hell, all the good teams in the SEC and Big Ten have playmakers that fit those needs, but yet most of the time they'll look at some guy from Kentucky just because his measurables are a little bit better, or some Purdue guy that no one's ever heard of. I'm not trying to take shots at either one of these colleges, but just because that player tested really well at the combine doesn't mean that he's going to be a good football player. If you don't even want to go with productive P4 players, then there's plenty of Group of 5 teams that had great football players that fit the NFL profile with crazy amount of production to back them up. Speaking of underrated ballers, selfishly, you guys know, or maybe you don't, maybe this is the first time you're coming across one of my videos. If so, thank you. You know that I root for UNLV and USC, but specifically talking about the Rebels, Jackson Woodard was robbed of getting an opportunity to hear his name called at the draft. In my eyes, this is the biggest travesty in the entire draft. He fits the exact measurables and play style as most other linebackers in the NFL, but because he didn't test well at the combine, scouts threw away his entire career of work. And I sound like a homer, because I am, but damn, he was a good player. He deserved a shot. It wasn't just him. You had other ballers like Shedeur Dolac from Buffalo, who is a little undersized, I'll give you that, but he clearly knows how to play the linebacker position, and his game would translate perfectly to the next level. He also didn't hear his name called. That's just 2 examples of many underrated football players that were overlooked for some bench player to be picked because scouts liked the way they looked in the Underwear Olympics instead. I know it ain't gonna change. This is how scouts have and always will evaluate talent. They're trying to project to the future. It just feels wrong sometimes. Now, I don't like to end things on a negative note, and I know I've made it seem like there's no positives from this draft, but you got some ballers in general that were drafted all across the NFL in good spots where they can earn a role and see the field soon. Specifically with the Mountain West, I love what Seattle did. They might have to be my new NFC team. I also believe that DeMeco Ryans is a ball knower with how many Trojans he has drafted so far. So out of this draft, you got the Houston Trojans and the running Seahawks. I also love what the Cardinals did. Apparently, they let Mr. Call of Duty himself become the GM for 3 days because they drafted some absolute studs. I like Walter Nolan, but when you get Will Johnson in the 2nd round, that's the steal of the draft. You cannot complain. And I don't care if Will Johnson's knee tendons snap off the bone before he turns 30. As long as he gives them 3 good years, then he would be the most valuable pick for where he was selected. Well, that's all I got for y'all today. I got to get out of here. Go check if Sam's Town already got the Canelo Crawford prop bets up. If you watched this far, thank you. It means a lot. And if you like sports in general, I talk about them sometimes. So it'd be cool if you subscribe. Most importantly, I'd really like to know what you guys think, but I think you should like the video.